When we as collectors are considering to buy a scale model, there are many questions in our heads, like, does it work in my fleet? Or perhaps the model has a little bit more to offer than just the livery, maybe there's an interesting backstory to it. Or, in this case, what's the point? Now, why that is the case, we will find out in this review, which we can do thanks to our partner here on the channel, Jumbolino Model, who, by the way, have just reduced their prices. And that's not just a sale thing, no, this is a permanent thing. And that in addition to the discount you can find on their website as well. So do check them out. You can find a link to them in the video description below. With that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we today will take a closer look at an Icelandair Boeing 737 MAX 8. And at the front of the box we have a cutout so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of that we have the Icelandair branding. Now, I did ask the question in the beginning of the video, what's the point? And we can basically already say that about the box design, because when we look at it here, what's the point? So the only thing worth mentioning here is simply the fact that it is a limited edition. And here she is, the Boeing 737 MAX 8 in the standard livery of Icelandair, or one of the many standard liveries of Icelandair. Basically, the livery stays the same. What changes is the color on the tail. In this case, we have the green one. It is the next in a line of many 737 MAX models from Herpa Wings and Scale 500. With the Icelandair livery, we had two 8s with the blue and the yellow tail, and a 9 with the pink tail. Now we get the 8 here with the green tail, which supposedly is telling us something about nature and how you are connected to that. On Iceland, this is all marketing speak. We don't care about that. We just care about that we have a green tail MAX 8 now, and want to find out what Herpa has done with this aircraft model so we can figure out if it is worth having in one's collection. And so to start our tour around the aircraft model, we do start with the tail section, where we on the vertical stabilizer have the Icelandair branding and then this green stripe. We will return to this topic later in the video. On the fuselage, we then find the full registration code of the aircraft and the Icelandic flag. Unfortunately, there aren't really many more details here to be found, as Herpa still holds back as much as they can, but we do have a bit of detailing around the very tail of the aircraft in form of the APU exhaust. So let's move on to the front of the aircraft. Here across the fuselage we have the billboard writing of Icelandair. Then we have a few static ports here and there, not too much, but a little bit. Yeah, we do have that. We have then some kind of logo or something, I think it's the name of the aircraft basically, that we find just underneath the cockpit windows. As always, I will not try to pronounce the name of the aircraft, as Icelandic is a mouthful. But we do have a little bit more detailing around the cockpit section in form of the cockpit windows with the nice metallic edges around this and the window wipers. Static ports here would have been really lovely. We saw them on the TUI 50-year anniversary aircraft. Why only there and not on any of the others, we don't know, but it would have been nice to have. Then we have the engines, or the engine nacelles. Now they have been given this dark blue Icelandair coloring, quite nice, with the silver leading edge and the safety markings. That's always a nice detail to see on them. The physical detailing of the engines itself, I think, is also really quite nice, with the chevron nozzles, and especially here from the front, very, very nice, you can see the engine fan blades. Now, on the fuselage, just above the wings, we have the emergency exits printed on, leading us straight to the wings, which we should also take a closer look at. Starting off with the top side, where we have the different flap slats and spoilers carved out fairly nicely. We have the markings for the emergency exits printed on. That's quite nice. The underside of the wings offers us more nice physical detailing, and here we also find the full registration code of the aircraft once again. And the 737 MAX 8, of course, has these winglets, where we again have the color scheme of Icelandair added, and also the Icelandair branding and hashtag. Now, the landing gear on the 737 MAX 8 here from Icelandair is the standard landing gear that Herpa uses for all their 737 MAX 8s. That's, of course, the height-adjusted landing gear by now, which looks much better than the very early versions of the MAX 8 from Herpa Wings. Also, the front landing gear looks fine, but some printed details here would have been really lovely. Now, on the belly of the aircraft, we have, apart from the Herpa logo, which no one cares about, a hole in the fuselage for a stand that is not included with this aircraft model. Quite silly, but as we don't have any printed details that this can destroy, I guess I can live with it. What is harder to live with is Herpa's policy when it comes to set domes, where they're raffling size, placement, and coloring. Now, in this case, they got placement and colors right, but of course the size is then wrong. This set dome is massively oversized compared to what the real aircraft aircraft carriers around. Where they are then a little bit more consistent, because we basically have that on all aircraft these days, not in the past, but these days, are the doors to the cargo compartments. They have been printed on this aircraft model. That's good news, here on the back of the aircraft, and of course also here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Boeing 737 MAX 8 with the green tail of Icelandair from Herpa Wings in scale 1 to 500. And what can we say about this aircraft model? Now, as always, I must praise Herpa for their 737 MAX mold. I think they have a really solid one in this case. They are doing really well with the 737 for quite some time, and since they height adjusted the MAX 737, we can also say that about the 737 MAX versions. So yeah, nice little scale 500 aircraft model. The detailing overall, yeah, is I think also acceptable. Of course, they are definitely holding back with printed details. There's definitely more that can be done here. But when it comes to the physical detailing, I think apart from the set dome that is just, this is always random what Herpa does there. But apart from that, this is actually quite alright in my opinion. But I did start this video with the question, what's the point? And yes, I did also say that about the box, and clearly what's the point about Herpa's box design as it is not existent. But unfortunately, what's the point has also to be said about this aircraft model. Now, why is that? Let me explain. We've had already two 737 MAX 8s from Herpa with the Icelandair livery, one with the blue tail, one with the yellow tail, and we even had a MAX 9 with the pink tail. So for most collectors, they will already have had quite a good chance to get a 737 MAX in the Icelandair livery into their fleet. So unless you really need to have the entire collection, so completing the Icelandair fleet, there's maybe less incentive to also get this model. But it gets much, much worse, because what is really the point in getting all these different 737 MAX aircraft in the Icelandair liveries? Well, that is of course the difference in tail, the different colors that Icelandair is displaying on their tails. And so obviously you would think then it's great that Herpa has now also realized a green-tailed Icelandair aircraft model, except they haven't, because this is not the green that we see on Icelandair aircraft in real life. As always, Herpa and colors, we've had it so many times. White is one of my favorite quotes from the Herpa Wings product manager. In this case, green is green, because the color they've added to this aircraft model is pure fiction. It has nothing to do with what Icelandair aircraft in real life are displaying. So if you are unable to replicate the one thing that makes this aircraft model important, then what's the point? I'm honestly sick and tired of this. These days I can hardly review a Herpa Wings model which doesn't have some sort of issue, but Herpa, they don't even care anymore at this point, you have to assume, because again, this is one thing that makes this aircraft model important, that would give an incentive to collectors that already have bought all the other ones, a reason to buy this one. And for the new collectors, it would be great to have another chance if they missed the previous ones, but why should they get this one when it is not showing what the real world is showing them? What is the point, Herpa, in this aircraft model? Other manufacturers have been able to replicate it. I reviewed a 737 MAX 9 of Icelandair made by NG Models quite a while ago. That had a much closer color to what the real life depicts than what you have been able to put on the aircraft model. Why is it that Herpa so consistently is inconsistent with their colors? They always claim how close they are with the airlines that they are replicating in their models, and they get all the information from these airlines, so therefore they can't be wrong. And yet we see model after model after model with completely fictional colors on them. This makes no sense. So either Herpa is just completely incompetent or colorblind, or they're lying to us. And come to think of it, it's probably both. So with this model that I really cannot recommend anyone to put their money into, we end this episode of review. So if you enjoy this type of content, and I promise you there are also some videos where we are talking more positively about models, then please feel free to leave a like. If you're new around here, why not hit subscribe? And with that, thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.